where news comes first. This is ABC-7 Extra.
Good evening, I'm Saul Saenz, and this is ABC-7 Extra Sunday edition. Thank you for sharing your Sunday evening with us. As the number of migrants coming into the country illegally through our borders grow, so are the numbers of pursuits by Department of Public Safety troopers, or DPS. Although no official numbers have been released, news coverage of pursuits and crashes has gone up dramatically from one end of the borderland to the other. Many DPS troopers are in the borderland as part of Operation Lone Star, Governor Greg Abbott's effort to combat illegal migration into Texas. Customs and Border Protection revised its pursuit policy following a crash downtown in 2020 that claimed the lives of 7 people. Border Patrol agents say they are thankful for the help DPS troopers provide by stopping and arresting smugglers. Agents are called to apprehend the migrants inside those vehicles, pursued and stopped by troopers. But concerns are also rising among people living in the borderland that unless something is done, innocent borderland bystanders could be caught in the middle. Crashes like these have been dominating the news lately. Crashes that begin as DPS pursuits and many times end with the arrest of smugglers transporting migrants, apprehension of migrants, and more importantly, injuries. These are issues raising eyebrows among homeowners where the pursuits end.
It's pretty dangerous when these high-speed pursuits are happening in neighborhoods like this. I mean, that could have been us or any family walking along this area that could have been injured.
Migrants were being transported inside this SUV when they were pursued by DPS troopers. The van belongs to a driver who was not involved in the pursuit. Pursuits and crashes like these are happening more frequently.
And this is the second time that we've had this happen in this area. One crashed just a half a mile or so from here not long ago.
This crash happened in Santa Teresa January 18th. The SUV fleeing DPS slammed into this homeowner's house while homeowners were inside.
The car had run into the fence right there, but thank God that the fence was there. If not, it would have created more damage to the house, you know. And so anyway, my wife and I are usually there in the front.
Video from this homeowner's security camera captured the moment before the impact. This pursuit ended with the car bursting into flames. Everyone made it out safely. This one happened March 24th, and this one March 31st. And this one April 7th. While no innocent bystander has been hurt, only migrants crossing illegally into the U.S. Some are asking if it's only a matter of time. And the amount of DPS troopers in the borderland could grow even more. Conversations are underway to try to bring a DPS headquarters to El Paso. Here to help us navigate through these DPS pursuits and the need for them is DPS Regional Director Jose Sanchez. Welcome, Trooper Sanchez.
Oh, thank you.
Also with us is former El Paso police officer and now city representative for District 7, Henry Rivera. Welcome, Representative.
Thank you, sir. Well,
and also joining us is County Commissioner Precinct 2, David Stout, who says he's deeply concerned about DPS pursuits. Off the bat, Trooper Sanchez, I want to start with you and ask you, what is the difference between a chase and a pursuit?
So a chase and pursuit, I don't think we have like a clear definition on that. Once we engage with emergency lights and we have probable cause for a stop and the suspect tends to evade, that's when we go into a pursuit mode. So we don't really have a chase. Now we have things that we call follow, you know, such as our undercover agents that are doing surveillances. They might follow somebody that's involved in an investigation, but that's during a surveillance. So there's not really a definition between chase and follow or chase and pursuit. It says pursuit is once the suspect attempts to evade us in any manner, where they're not responding to emergency lights, taking off at a high rate of speed, trying to do loop arounds, you know, turn off their lights in the middle of the night so we can't see them. Anything they do to try and evade us.
To be clear, you're not really going after the migrants. You're actually going after the smugglers, right? The people transporting them?
Correct. We're going after the smugglers. The smugglers are being paid by the transnational criminal organizations or the cartels. That's who they work for. They're getting paid money to transport migrants from criminal organizations. And we're going after the smugglers. Human smuggling is a third-degree felony. I don't know, or I don't think a lot of people in the public know that. It's serious. And when you evade, it then bumps up to a second-degree felony. And if you happen to commit a murder during the course of that pursuit, hence killing a migrant because you bump into a tree, roll into a fence, then you're actually looking at a first-degree murder and possibly a capital murder, depending on the circumstances.
Okay, Representative Rivera, you were a police officer. Do you recall what the pursuit policy was when you served on EPD? What was the policy back then?
The policy we had back then was similar to what Regional Director Mr. Sanchez just said. If the crime was serious enough to present further danger, the pursuit was initiated. But at any time, the officer committing the pursuit can and will stop it if he feels that it's a danger to the community. But now, because the pursuit is stopped by the officers, troopers, or deputies themselves, doesn't mean that the pursuee is going to slow down for anybody else. I want to make that clear.
Okay. Commissioner Stout.
Yeah, although they're stopped, the people being pursued will continue.
Yeah. Commissioner Stout, you have a problem with DPS pursuits. Some would ask, how else can you catch smugglers transporting migrants without pursuits? But you do have an issue with some of these pursuits, most especially some of the crashes that we just showed.
Yeah, I think it's starting to get out of control. If you look at best practices in policing, in policies when it comes to pursuits and chases, I can look at the Chiefs of Police, International Association of Chiefs of Police. According to their best practice, you should not engage in a pursuit or chase unless the person you're chasing is deemed to be an imminent danger. And I think a lot of these pursuits begin with traffic stops, and I understand the need to try and catch smugglers and make sure that they're taken care of. But we've seen the video that you showed earlier. I believe from the time that Operation Lone Star began in March of 2022 to July of 2022, there were 30 deaths involved with state troopers and chases. 5 of those innocent bystanders. There has to be a better way to take care of this issue than endangering folks in our community. I mean, they're supposed to be here to keep us safe, and I feel like this is getting out of control.
Trooper Sanchez, do you differentiate between pursuing smugglers out on the highway versus in residential areas?
Yeah, so what the trooper does is when they're engaged in a pursuit, they have the liberty to terminate the pursuit, in which there have been quite a few pursuits that we've terminated, depending on the situation. If they feel like, I want to back up a little bit too, and that, yes, it's a dangerous job. Law enforcement is dangerous. Pursuits are dangerous. And what we were talking about earlier, Commissioner, about people dying, is let's look at the whole border problem. When we originally started Operation Lone Star, it started off in South Texas. Migration was really bad. And because of the efforts that we've been putting under Governor Abbott and the resources that have been applied to assist Border Patrol, that shifted to now where we are in El Paso. And back in November, December, towards the end of last year, when we started to increase our resources and started helping out our Border Patrol partners with enforcement, with laying concertina wire, with the amount of troopers, we have now pushed that migrant flow into New Mexico. And so if we were to lay off our pursuits completely, the message would be, it's okay to come and drive across into our state, into our country, reap havoc, cause chaos. Because here's the thing, if they're pursuing from us, what respect do they have for the law? What respect do they have for our state, for our country, and much less our citizens? They have no respect for the migrants that they're transporting. They're getting paid to do a job, an illegal job, and they have total disregard for the migrants that they have in their vehicle that they're putting in harm's risk. And I'm pretty sure those migrants that are paying $7,000, $10,000 to come across into our border are not paying so that they can get into a high-speed pursuit, so their lives can be at risk, so they can be thrown in the trunk of a car without water, without much oxygen, and then to be stashed into a stash house with very minimal living conditions. And so, yes, the pursuits are dangerous. Yes, I understand the residents can be concerned about that stuff, but we also have to look at the big picture too. If we allow lawlessness, then we create chaos, then we create disorder, and we have more of a criminal element.
We're going to continue the conversation, but we're going to take a really quick break right now. And when we come back, I'll ask my guests if they're familiar with attempts to bring a DPS headquarters to the borderland. Would this lead to more pursuits, or would it lead to better coordination with troopers to avoid crashes? But first, we asked borderland residents how they feel about the growing number of pursuits. You're watching ABC-7 Xtra Sunday Edition, where news comes first.
What's the alternative? Just not to chase people and let it continue happening? I mean, it's got to be done.
It's a no-win battle, man. I mean, if we keep the people out that are trying to cross over, you know, and chasing people down, we look like we don't care about it. We're inhumane. We have no compassion. But at the same time, you just can't walk into somebody's place and say, I want to come in, you know.
Good news. No matter what you choose, you save. Carl's Jr.'s all-day 2 for $5 deal lets you pick 2 tasty items, like our savory cheeseburger, spicy chicken sandwich, chicken stars, or French toast dips for just $5. Only at Carl's Jr.
Hey, you two. So, you've been saving for your dream home? Or perhaps saving to build a home of your own? Maybe it's time for a change. Now is a great time to apply for a First Light mortgage and save up to $3,500 on your closing costs. Apply now, and remember, First Light Federal Credit Union. Your better credit union.
For over 47 years, the attorneys at Share Legate have been fighting and winning for our clients. For serious injury and wrongful death cases, the attorney you choose matters. Experience matters. Resources matter. And above all, results matter. The experienced attorneys at Share Legate believe every client's case should be taken seriously. No gimmicks, just results.
When the big story breaks,
Breaking news, hundreds of migrants in Juarez are making their way to the border.
live coverage on the scene.
Over 500 migrants have started making their way to the Rio Grande.
Another 2 buses have been loaded with migrants and taken from this area.
Count on ABC-7 for up-to-the-minute information.
Mexico announced that dozens of deaths at a Juarez migrant detention center will be investigated as a homicide.
Complete coverage of breaking news only on ABC-7.
Good news. No matter what you choose, you save. Carl's Jr.'s all-day 2 for $5 deal lets you pick 2 tasty items, like our savory cheeseburger, spicy chicken sandwich, chicken stars, or French toast dips for just $5. Only at Carl's Jr.
Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. Thank you for sharing your Sunday evening with us. I also want to welcome back our guest, DPS Regional Director Jose Sanchez. Also with us is former El Paso police officer and now City Representative for District 7, Henry Rivera. And also joining us is County Commissioner for Precinct 2, David Stout, who says he's deeply concerned about the DPS pursuit. Let's start with you, Representative Rivera. There are rumblings of bringing a DPS headquarters to the borderland. What have you heard? What can you tell us?
It would be a great opportunity to have the DPS Regional Director Command Center here in El Paso. It's much needed. As it is, they have facilities that are out of date, crowded, and their lab is used by our police department as well.
Mm-hmm. Trooper Sanchez, how would this affect DPS pursuits? You obviously have a station right now, right? How would this affect DPS and the pursuits as well?
So the point of having a regional headquarters is not because of OLS West or because of pursuits or anything like that. The reason is because we've outgrown where we're at. When the state is divided, the state is divided up into 7 regions. And so the region that we're currently in, El Paso, is part of the West Texas region. We cover 36 counties. Headquarters for the region is in El Paso because of the municipality and the population, and most of our employees are here. When we originally started the regional concept, the headquarters was in Midland. When Director McCraw came into office, him being from El Paso, hey, you know what, the headquarters needs to be in El Paso because there's more of a need for the presence there. And so because it was never outfitted or built to be a regional headquarters, we've outgrown it. And the regional headquarters is here to provide a service for the community. Currently, most of my troopers work out of their cars, they share workstations, and a lot of people probably don't know too is that it's not just the troopers, it's not just our investigators. We have our Texas Rangers, we have our crime lab. We also oversee driver's license. And as you know, and being in the city as much as it's grown, it's very difficult to get a driver's license appointment around because our offices are so small and they're scattered throughout the city. That regional headquarters would bring together all our driver's license offices into one, what we'd call a driver's license mega center. If you go to Fort Worth or Dallas or Houston, even in the Midland, Odessa area, we have a driver's license mega center. And it creates a lot more efficiency for the community, and so many people are pleased with it. We get great compliments on the customer service, the efficiency, you know, and just how things are taken care of, overall customer service. And you think about this, with all the different services that we have in our department, I just named a few, but we got a lot more. We also have victim services. We also have regulatory services and different things. When somebody wants a question from DPS, it's hard for them to figure out what office do I go to because we're spread out throughout the whole county. And having that regional headquarters, just like El Paso PD has a headquarters, somebody has a question or concern or needs some kind of service provided by the El Paso PD, everybody knows where El Paso PD headquarters is, and they can go right there and get it.
I do have to ask you, however, if we open up or if we have headquarters the size that you're referring to, would we have more DPS troopers in the borderland?
We could possibly increase that. That would probably be the goal, is to get more, but I'll tell you this. If it's going to happen overnight, it won't. And the reason it won't happen overnight is because right now, law enforcement across the nation, we're having a tough time recruiting. So we're having a tough time filling the positions that we could. We could easily justify getting an additional 50 to maybe 100 troopers just for the El Paso, Husbeth, and Culberson County area. But the only problem is how are we going to fill it? Mm-hmm. And the other problem I have too in this region is the energy sector up in Midland, Odessa. With the increase, with the oil boom, solar panel farms and windmills, it's hard to compete for jobs. And I mean, they're starting people off 6 figures in the energy sector. And so we're constantly, whenever we have something specific happen in Midland, Odessa, like we have an increase in traffic accidents due to commercial vehicle, we have to send our troops from El Paso up there to help with some of those task forces.
Commissioner Stout, DPS headquarters in El Paso, good idea, bad idea?
Well, I mean, when it comes to better serving the public, driver's licenses and those types of things, I don't think that's an issue. But I mean, when you have an increased militarization of the border, I think it's bad when, I mean, obviously we've seen an increased presence of DPS in our community, and so we have seen an increase in the number of chases and pursuits that have ended in crashes and sometimes even tragedy.
Is that what you consider it, a militarization of the border?
Well, I mean, more policing, more military is in my opinion, militarization of the border, yes. Mm-hmm. And you know, I think that first off, immigration is a federal responsibility. You know, I don't believe that the DPS should be trying to enforce federal immigration law. And it seems to me that that's the purpose of Operation Lone Star, and that's the reason why we've had an increase in folks here when it comes to DPS. You know, and you know, I also don't understand why DPS doesn't prescribe to the same types of policies that many other law enforcement agencies implement here locally, whether it's the police department or the sheriff's department. I think they have better policies in place when it comes to when and when not to get into a pursuit.
Okay, we're going to take another quick break. When still ahead, I'll ask my guests if there's an alternative to pursuits. Also, some of those pursuits are happening in New Mexico, and this could be raising questions as jurisdictional questions, as a matter of fact. But first, I ask residents once again if they believe there's an alternative to pursuits. We'll be back with more ABC-7 Extra Sunday edition. Don't go.
Of all the accidents that happen, I mean, maybe taper off on the speed chases. You know, once they get to a certain speed, stop, man. You know, I mean, they're not going to stop anyways. You know, that's what I think.
Is it inevitable that it's going to go through neighborhoods? That's not up to the police. You know, they have to go wherever the people are running. So, you know, there's not really a whole lot that can be done about that either, as far as I know.
Your boss thinks you're his best employee. You earned a double burger with tons of melted cheese. Also, you're self-employed. A supersonic double stack cheeseburger.
Sonic.
Wow, it really turned out great.
Yeah, and with the money we saved with Navy Federal Credit Union, it was practically free.
You know, I can't imagine where we'd be without them.
Navy Federal Credit Union. Our members are the mission.
There are those of us who earn our calluses, who choose raw materials over ready-made. It takes a special kind of person to build their world from scratch, and a special set of tools. Northern Tool's a problem solver's paradise. There's nothing we can't find, fix, or figure out together. We're made for this. Start solving your projects today at northerntool.com.
At Oscar Leaser's Hyundai of El Paso, you simply get more inventory. While other dealers are struggling to get new cars in, we have the best inventory we've had in years with the vehicles you want, like Sonata, Tucson, and Santa Fe. And more savings with 0% APR on many new Hyundais. That's right, 0% is back. And payments as low as $199 a month. That's more inventory and more savings. Not to mention more warranty, more technology, more safety, more convenience. More. But at Oscar Leaser's Hyundai of El Paso, more costs less.
On the $3 crabs have arrived at Sonic. All you need is a crisp $3 bill, but those don't exist. So we made our own Sonic on the $3 crabs.
Sonic.
Welcome back to this third and final segment of ABC-7 Extra Sunday edition. I also want to welcome back our guest, DPS Regional Director Jose Sanchez. Also with us is former El Paso police officer and now city representative for District 7, Henry Rivera. And also joining us is County Commissioner for Precinct 2, David Stout, who says he's deeply concerned about DPS pursuits. I'm going to start this time with you, Mr. Sanchez. Are there alternatives to pursuits, say maybe radioing ahead and having someone stop the offender a mile ahead? I don't know, but I'm asking you.
Sure. So what we do is we try to mitigate as much as we can on the pursuits. Good thing about our department is that we are very well trained when it comes to it. You go through the DPS Academy, you get trained in pit maneuvers, which a pit maneuver is essentially a way to end a pursuit by using your vehicle as a tool. We also have our aircraft section, which is another division I forgot to mention earlier. And our aircraft section is actually the primary air in the El Paso area. So they're not just there for DPS, but we assist El Paso PD greatly. As a matter of fact, we have a memo of understanding with the El Paso Police Department where we have actual officers that fly with our pilots because we assist them so much. And so they're always up in the air assisting everybody. Their goal mission is to assist everybody from the air. So when they're up and we're getting into a pursuit, aircraft will say, you know what, you can back off, troop, we'll got it, we're gonna chase them, we'll follow them to a safe location, and then you can make the approach from there, and we've done that. So we've been successful with that. We've been successful with pit maneuvers, and the other part too that we started implementing on our training is trying to box in the vehicle when we can. For example, like you mentioned earlier, if we have a vehicle that's a mile ahead, if they can get in front of the pursuit vehicle, they'll slow down. To slow that pursuit vehicle down, we'll surround them and then we'll trap them in until they stop, and then we deploy a tactical movement in order to extract them from the vehicle and make the arrest so that we can end the pursuit.
Commissioner Stout, what do you suggest as an alternative to pursuits?
Well, I think we just heard some alternatives, but again, I think implementing policies that move away from initiating the pursuit in the first place. I mean, if you're doing a routine traffic stop and you can't determine whether this person is an imminent threat or danger at that point in time, then that's what I think the best practice to talk about is, you don't really need to initiate pursuit in the first place. And so, I think there are many ways that the law can still be applied and enforced without endangering the community.
Representative Vera, your thoughts on this as a former police officer?
That's why there are laws, Mr. Sines, in this country. That's why any law enforcement entity has to enforce their laws. It is not the law enforcement officers that are creating this. It's the smugglers that are. In your video that you're showing, Trooper Sanchez mentioned everything right, except the fact that the driver jumped out. Had the driver not jumped out and just stopped the car, it wouldn't have gone into the house. So these smugglers are creating a dangerous situation. If a pursuit happens, and I'm glad to hear that the El Paso Police Department has a memo of understanding with the DPS, whereas before we had it with Customs. That's the alternative way to do it, to be successful. And like was mentioned earlier, there's times where it's not going to be the results that you want. But it's not because the trooper or the officer or the sheriff initiated that pursuit. It's because the smuggler doesn't care who he hurts or how he gets away. He just wants to get away. And like I mentioned, when the officers, troopers, or sheriffs stop that pursuit, he keeps going at a rate that you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
Putting everybody else in danger. So the policies are in place, and the laws are in place, and our law enforcement officers are doing their job. They're doing it as safely as they can, and I keep supporting that measure. And having a regional regional command center here in El Paso only strengthens those relationships with the El Paso Police Department, the DPS troopers, and other law enforcement agencies that are located within this community. And further, hopefully, it'll enhance the other regions that are around El Paso. And all it does is add another layer of security for our community here.
Trooper Sanchez, I want to go back to you and talk to you about jurisdictional issues. I know that many of these pursuits, the ones that we've been showing, not all of them, but some of the ones that we've been showing ended in Santa Teresa or Sunland Park. Have you had any jurisdictional issues when it comes to pursuits into New Mexico?
So going back to what the councilman said, is we have those relationships, not just with locally and across the state, but we also have it with the state partners. So that's one of the things that we focus on. Prior to being in this position, I was up in Lubbock, and so we had a good relationship with New Mexico State Police on that northern end, and also with Oklahoma and Colorado, because we had a lot of activity that went back and forth between those three states. So down in this area, we have a good working relationship with New Mexico State Police. Our lieutenants, our sergeants, they have coffee meetings together to discuss things like this. You know, when we get a pursuit into your state, you know, are we going to continue the pursuit? Are we going to pursuit? Who's going to take it over? And we have the discussions right now currently, because we've had an increase of the amount of pursuits going into Mexico. We're starting to establish better policies and procedures for that.
Okay. Well, Regional Director, Trooper Jose Sanchez, thank you so much for joining us. Commissioner David Stout, thank you so much for joining us. And Representative Henry Vera, also thank you so much for watching, for joining us for this very important discussion. And I want to thank you, our viewer, for watching. Remember, you can always weigh in on what you believe should happen with pursuits and a possible DPS headquarters. In fact, we have 2 elected officials right here you can share your thoughts with. I'm Saul Saenz, and this has been ABC-7 Extra. Good night y buenas noches.
Thank you for watching. ABC-7 News is now available on any of these streaming services, as well as the KVIA News and KVIA Weather and Traffic apps.